entreprendre, personne ne l'a jamais tenté. Nous allons construire un rêve.
The truth does not matter. There is only the power of men.
The engineering exploit which transformed the Paris skyline, swords drawn for Ridley Scott's medieval epic, and a complex and moving study of one young woman's choices. That's all coming up in today's film show. Well, to take us through it, I'm joined by Lisa Nesselson. Hi, Lisa.
Hello, Olivia.
Now, we're starting with a film where the release date was delayed 5 times due to COVID. It is finally here, an extravagant, romantic drama. It's called Eiffel. It's about that man and that tower. Was it worth the wait?
Well, 5 release delays is nothing because this film took 25 years in various permutations to reach the screen. And that's almost certainly a good thing since digital effects can now convincingly render the various stages of the so-called staircase to infinity with startling realism. Romain Duris, who plays the incredibly talented French civil engineer, says that Gustave Eiffel was the Steve Jobs of his era. We know that the 300-meter tower, as it was then called, was successfully built because in movies set in Paris, every window manages to have a view of it.
That's true.
That is geographically impossible, but the Eiffel Tower is universal shorthand for the French capital, indeed for France herself. When Eiffel set out to build it, to be completed in time for the 1889 World's Fair, it was widely considered to be utter folly. Eiffel himself didn't know whether his concept would work. He also wasn't all that interested in building it at first. He was more taken with the challenges of digging what we now call the Paris Metro, the subway system. So what made him change his mind? Well, the film suggests chercher la femme. He wants to impress a recently rediscovered lost love whose first name starts with the letter A. If true, that sure beats a box of chocolates and a bouquet of flowers.
And maybe it beats an integrated transport system like the metro. Well, let's take a look at the toil, suspense and romance in Eiffel.
Eiffel? Oui, pardon. Vous pourriez avoir des idées sur le sujet du concours?
Il faut voir plus libre, plus audacieux.
Une tour. 300 mètres. Entièrement en métal. Un défi à la gravité. Aux éléments. Cette tour, messieurs, c'est Paris. Son rayonnement. Sa place dans le monde. Pourquoi tu m'as pas tout dit?
So that recreation of 19th century Paris does look pretty impressive, but is this a bit perhaps old-fashioned for contemporary tastes?
Well, the late 1880s were a time of incredible invention and upheaval, and Eiffel was intent on pursuing challenges he could call modern. A widower with children who came from a modest background, Eiffel not only had to conceive the tower, he had to inspire the workers who built it, reassure creditors, and drum up positive publicity. Romain Duris, as you can see there, looks fetching in period garb. In fact, it's worth remembering he played the title gentleman thief in 2004's big screen Arsène Lupin, and so does Emma Mackey, whom you may know from the series Sex Education on Netflix. She's fun to watch as a seemingly spoiled young lady, a young beauty schooled in frivolity and seduction, who actually turns out to have a deeper personality than appearances would suggest. Is the film too old-fashioned, you ask? Well, the scenes in which the feet of the tower seem destined to sort of sink into the bog and muck, and the hold-your-breath suspense surrounding the ingenious sand-based system intended to properly align the entire structure genuinely had me on the edge of my seat. There are issues of class, wealth, and power in this tale, but it is a bittersweet love story at heart.
Now, you mentioned that today the Eiffel Tower is shorthand for France, for Paris, so it's kind of hard to believe that at the time it was built, there were some really high-profile detractors, weren't there?
Oh, you bet, starting with the Vatican. The towers at Notre Dame Cathedral are only 226 feet high, and the Vatican contended that God would be displeased by anything higher than that, let alone 1,000 feet tall. Famous writers of the day signed petitions against it on aesthetic grounds. They thought it would mar the beauty of the city, and those objections are humbling for anybody in the criticism racket. When those light bulbs start to sparkle on the hour each night, the last thing anybody's thinking is, look at that monstrosity marring the horizon.
A monstrosity very happily marring the horizon, more than a century later, indeed. Now, we're staying with French history for this next film, a medieval face-off from director Ridley Scott. Matt Damon, Adam Driver and Jodie Comer star in The Last Duel, based on a true story and the fight for one woman's honour. Yinka Oyatade takes a look.
At the centre of the film,
Jacques Legris entered our home.
the value of a woman's word.
He attacked me.
The accusation is false.
Marguerite de Carouge reports a rape that she has no way of proving.
I am telling the truth.
The truth does not matter. There is only the power of men.
Her husband tells King Charles VI to confront the accused rapist.
I request a duel to the death.
If you lose, your wife will suffer dire consequences.
This wasn't considered an act of violence against her. It was considered an act of violence against her husband. The stakes were so high, and she had everything to lose by speaking out in the way that she did. And I feel like that alone, you get a huge sense of the woman who she was.
I am risking my life for you.
You are risking my life so you can save your pride.
The Last Duel tells the same story from the perspectives of the three main characters. Based on true events, the film transports audiences to the violent era that was the 100 Years' War. To recreate the vicious last stand in all its intensity, director Ridley Scott used multiple cranes to follow horses, filming with 6 cameras simultaneously. The historic drama is derived from Eric Jagger's book with the same name. It's also based on drawings dating back to the Middle Ages.
This type of duel has been used since the early Middle Ages, especially to settle matters like adultery. They believed that it was the judgment of God that determined the outcome. The person who won was considered to be chosen by God.
The adaptation explores the all-encompassing power that men had during the era. Its release comes at a time when more and more women are speaking out against sexual assault.
I will not be silent.
I have this sneaky suspicion that real French medieval knights didn't sound all that much like Adam Driver and Matt Damon. But you know what? Ridley Scott is such a good director, and this is such an interesting story. I'm very eager to see what they have to say.
It does look spectacular. Well, next to a film from Norway, which is entitled The Worst Person in the World. Now, Renate Reinsve, who plays the main character, Julie, won the Best Actress trophy in Cannes for that performance in July. The film was really well received there. It's hard to describe why, so tell us more.
Well, Freud asked, what does a woman want? And in his 5th feature, Joachim Trier explores that question, and the result is a sensitive and convincing portrait of a young woman, written and directed by a man. Trier addresses the fact that in the Western world, we're raised with the idea that your love life and your work life, if you're good at both, will lead to bottomless and enduring satisfaction. All you have to do is make the right choices. When you're in your teens and 20s, of course, the possibilities seem endless, but Julie is about to turn 30. She has tried and abandoned several courses of study, including medicine. It starts to dawn on her that sometimes, as in which guy you'll shower with affection without being distracted by another guy over there, your options are not endless. Even people who never go to the movies know what a Hollywood-style ending is supposed to be, but does that ever happen in what we call real life?
Okay, well, let's take a look at that young woman with some existential problems and a problematic attention span.
I leave my things behind for all to see and hope that she will understand why. Ending the game is like changing the name of your favorite song.
Og da, hvis du glad i meg, hvis du elsker meg, så da fikser vi alt det andre.
Ja, jeg elsker deg. Men jeg elsker deg ikke.
Defies category, really. Lisa, what did you make of it?
Oh, I really like this movie. It's funny and melancholy and sexy, and the characters feel real to me. If I had to pick a favorite moment, as Julie celebrates her 30th birthday, the camera shows us photos of several generations of women in her family, and it's clear that they led very different and way more constricted lives, especially when it comes to having children. Now that society offers incredible freedom to Julie, freedom her female ancestors couldn't begin to imagine, she doesn't know what to do with it. Fun fact, the director says in interviews that in 1750, the average lifespan for a woman was 35 years. That wouldn't even give you enough time to see the fashions you wore as a teenager come back decades later.
No, absolutely not. Now to a film which is being re-released on French screens this week. It's a restored classic from 1966, The Battle of Algiers. This was quite the political event at the time that it was made.
And it's still excellent viewing, a dramatic recreation that feels as if you are there, as if it's a documentary. This is a classic not only in filmmaking terms. Although the Italian director endeavored to make a politically neutral film fair to all the protagonists, it also functions as a tribute to the daring techniques of urban guerrilla warfare, especially if you believe the rebels are on the right side of the conflict, the Algerian War. The French government did not hold that view, and at first banned the film from being shown in France for about 5 years. Many of the actors are non-professionals who experienced the real events, hence that convincing look. It's a film about how it's possible to win a battle but lose the war of ideas. And in 2003, looking for inspiration in dealing with Iraq, the George W. Bush Pentagon held a screening to study how a successful insurrection operates. I guess we should be grateful they didn't model their Eliminate Evildoers program on James Bond films.
Wow, that really does have echoes into contemporary history. Lisa, thank you very much for that roundup this week. We'll leave you with a clip of that groundbreaking film, La Bataille d'Alger, or The Battle of Algiers. Do remember to check out our website for more movie news. We're on social media too. There's more news coming up on France 24 just after this.
Regarde. Halte!
Whoa, whoa.